The Clippers were once the hottest team in the NBA, so they held a fire sale? The Lakers added needed outside shooting, and speaking of trades, the Kings made their biggest deal in more than a decade to rescue a moribund offense. Good afternoon. I'm James, and this is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Afternoon Report. So it is February 5th, 2026, finally back in the home office. Normally we record in the morning, but I really had to get a grip on what the hell the Clippers were trying to do. So we have tons to discuss, and if you like being in the know about LA sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop an update. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. By all means, comment. We have a quick look at the scoreboard because, man, we've got so much to discuss. Cleveland 124, Clippers 91, and Seattle beat the Kings last night 4-2. Meanwhile, today, Philadelphia is in town to play the Lakers at 7. Jackson Hayes, by the way, was suspended for pushing a mascot during pregame introductions at Washington. Originally, I wanted to blast Hayes for getting physical with a junior college dropout furry. And then I saw the clip. Now I want to blast Hayes for not boxing out with that forearm shiv. You're missing out on playing time, my dude. And by the way, the Kings are at Las Vegas at 7. So with that out of the way, let's get to the trade deadline. You know, one of the things I like is that I can tell you how our local teams operate. I can break down for you how the Dodgers put together their team. Same for the Rams, by the way. But after this trade deadline, I can say I have no idea what the master plan for the Clippers actually is. As we mentioned in the open, just a couple of days ago, this was the hottest team in the NBA, and they celebrated it by setting the whole Intuit Arena on fire. Make it make sense. We already discussed how they sent James Harden to Cleveland for a guard with hammer time on his feet. Then, at today's trade deadline, they sent starting center Ivica Zubac, a guy they claimed was off the market, to Indiana. When you are looking at trade deadline winners and losers, and you're going to hear about the winners and losers a lot, it's not even that the Clippers are losers, because the Zubac trade in a vacuum actually looks pretty good. It's that the Oklahoma City Thunder are big bleeping winners. They're the defending champs, thanks in no small part to all the draft picks the Clippers sent to them in exchange for that ill-fated Paul George trade. They still have the Clippers' first-round pick this summer. And believe you me, you tell me how the Clippers are a shoo-in for the playoffs. They're in the play-in round right now, but that roster, how are they going to stay? That roster is Kawhi Leonard and who? You have Darius Garland, the guy they got back for Harden, who has already missed 26 games due to injury. You have 160-year-old Brook Lopez replacing Zubac. Who? How? Which means that the Thunder theoretically, again, defending champs, trying to build a dynasty, get a lottery pick from the Clippers. Now, let's put that out of the way. Because the Pacers did overpay for Zubac. Especially overpaying because they ain't going to the playoffs either. The Clippers wanted 2 first-round draft picks if they were going to send away Zubac. That was back when they started the season 6-21. Well, the Clippers did get that. Plus, the Pacers being awful means at least they get a chance at a lottery pick. The Clippers also get a second-rounder, former number 6 overall pick Benedict Mathurin, and Isaiah Jackson. So there were so many moving parts with the Clippers over the last few days. Let's take a breath and speculate on what the Clippers will have and where the problems are. The Clippers got significantly younger over the last few days. But how could they not? They entered the season with the oldest team in the history of professional basketball. The depth stripped bare. Garland is going to be your starting guard if he could ever walk, let alone run. Matharian can score like a starter, so that's, again, not bad. But there is no way in hell Lopez is a long-term solution at center. So those are three of your starters, theoretically. Then you have Leonard and John Collins. Now, the Clippers can come to their fan base and say, look, we can find a replacement for Zubac in the draft. The dude was a top 10 center, but it wasn't like he was elite. Nobody was saying this guy was a perennial all-star. And then the Clippers could also come back and say, look, we're going to have a ton of cap space to woo at least one elite superstar. But here comes the problems for the Clippers. Say the Clippers do, in fact, get a lottery pick from the Pacers. We have no evidence that this front office drafts well. None. Zubac was sent to Indy, but so was Kobe Brown, who was a recent draft pick who never got much of a chance to develop because the Clippers played their vets. Now, as for cap space, sure, they have cap space. But take the Lakers, right? The Lakers can sell a superstar on the idea of, hey, you come to LA, you can play with Luka Doncic. You can't say, hey, why don't you come play with 35-year-old Kawhi Leonard? Who, by the way, is caught up in a controversy where his contract might get voided and he'd be a free agent. That's not going to have the same impact. Moreover, the Clippers' reputation has taken a number of kicks to the groin. Consider the way that they treated Chris Paul, who we're going to talk about in a couple of moments. So, what are the Clippers' big plans? They're going to need a new center. They're going to, have a couple of draft picks and now cap space. But you still have to come up with a sales pitch. And they don't have much of one right now. We mentioned Harden. The headline on CBSSports.com claims that Harden says he did not request a trade from the Clippers, but the quotes didn't back up the headline. Harden told ESPN, quote, when things don't work out, there are ways to end things in relationships without having to crack each other. Maybe we just outgrew each other, and whatever the case may be. I feel like the other situations weren't like that. They didn't put me in a weird position as much as everybody tried to make it like that, unquote. Harden was basically saying, look, guys, I wanted to give the Clippers a chance to rebuild without me. That is not asking for a trade. That is not denial of asking for a trade. It sounds like the Harden situation was what we were saying on this channel all along. That Harden was balling. He asked for the entire bag because he was balling, and the Clippers tried to have Harden and the cap space, and Harden was like, no, I need to get paid. That does not make Harden a villain in that story. It simply sounds like irreconcilable differences. By the way, Chris Paul finally has a place to go. Whether he arrives there is anybody's guess. He was traded to Toronto. It's the latest in a series of messy divorces for the Clips, like we've been talking about. Now, that deal involved three teams. The Clippers will get back somebody named Vanja Marinovic, who, by the way, has never played in an NBA game. He is somewhere in Serbia. Maybe he's running a resistance movement or something. As for Paul, we don't know if he's going to head north. He may get bought out. So, again, we talked about winners and losers, right? You can't call the Clippers winners in this trade either, because they never should have assembled that old-ass roster at the start of the year in the first place. You don't win a trade simply because you cut bait. This isn't even limiting the damage. The Clippers were dragged nationwide over how they treated Paul. So again, and again, We don't know what the Clippers' master plan is. If you have an idea, feel free to let me know, but there's still way too many uncertain parts here. Meanwhile, as expected, the Lakers made just one move, and it was sensible. So kudos. They sent guard Gabe Vincent and a second-round pick to Atlanta for shooter Luke Kennard. Now, this does not make them a threat to pass the Thunder, to become a title contender, but it does address and hopefully eliminate one of their two big problems: outside shooting. It became readily apparent that the Lakers, they're not going to play any defense this year. No matter how much JJ Redick complains, they are not going to play any defense. Their best hope is to outscore you, just overwhelm you. And they already have lots of firepower with Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves. The big issue with their offense was lack of three-point shooting. And Kennard addresses that abomination. Now, he's not going to start, but it also makes the Lakers' second team kind of intriguing, because you have Rui Hachimura, who can score along with Kennard. Multiple scoring punches off the bench. Not a bad idea. We've been talking a lot about winning and losing trades. I think most fans want to win every trade, even to the point of theft. But that rarely happens in sports. Except yesterday with the LA Kings. They flat out robbed the New York Rangers. Winger Artemi Panarin, one of the big trophies to chase for the NHL trade deadline, he comes to LA for former first-round pick Liam Greentree and a third-rounder. From Broadway to Tinseltown, as the scribes would call it. This, guys, is likely the best Kings trade in more than a decade. You could say, oh, Pierre-Luc Dubois was supposed to be that guy, but that was based on potential that Dubois has never realized. Panarin is a legit offensive threat. Now, the Rangers recently told their fans that the team would enter a retool, and while Greentree should make the NHL, the Blue Shirts did not get enough tools back in this deal. They're also going to pay half the dude's salary to get him out of town. So the Kings rewarded him. They signed him to an extension, which means he's likely going to retire as a SoCal. This is a win for GM Ken Holland, and it was desperately needed because Holland had a hot trash offseason. Panarin led New York in points and assists. He's on pace for 29 goals, which makes him an extremely needed playmaker on a Kings team that has about as much creativity as a Kid Rock album. Corey Perry is almost as old as LeBron James. He's third on the team in goals. That's how little offense the Kings have. Their power play, 29th in the NHL. Now, I will grant you Panarin is 34, so that's an ish. But the biggest problem that the Kings have now is whether Jim Hiller will let this guy cook, as the kids say. The Kings have a really strict defensive structure. It is so suffocating that whenever they add an offensive first performer, that production from the guy will fall faster than Wile E. Coyote in a cartoon. Imagine the possibilities of Panarin on a line with Adrian Kempe. Start salivating. Now, this move doesn't necessarily make the Kings a cup contender, by the way. They'd have to still get past Edmonton to do that. But this should ensure them a playoff spot. I'm going to make a crazy guess and say Matthew Stafford is not retiring because he is currently partying it up in Cabo San Lucas with Coach Sean McVay. Now, the scribes are like, oh, McVay's going to make a sales pitch for Stafford to stay with the Rams. And I'm reading that like, you smooth-brained bastards. You think if Stafford was even considering retirement, he would want his coach around? Like, that's not awkward? Spending a week having drinks served to them, toes in the sand, watching the waves roll in. McVay is like, man, this is paradise. And Stafford goes, yeah, not long for you, bro. Really? Really? Stafford's going to stay. If he doesn't, I'll admit my error, but you don't party up with your coach unless you're going to stay. Also with the Rams, by the way, Arizona has requested to interview Rams assistant head coach Aubrey Pleasant for a potential defensive coordinator gig. Defensive line coach Eric Henderson is reportedly going to leave USC and return to the NFL, specifically as the Commanders' defensive line coach and run game coordinator. Now, at the moment, it's absolutely fair to call that a loss, but the more defensive coordinator Gary Patterson can bring in his people, the smoother the transition for the Trojans will be. So it's a hit, but it could work out for the best. Meanwhile, for the many years, Trojans fans were begging Lincoln Riley to recruit California high schoolers. Even longer, UCLA fans were begging their coaches to recruit anybody. Bob Chesney continues to break that mold. He did embrace common sense. He's landed the first Bruins high school recruit for 2027 in modern-day linebacker Mike Davis. So again, more common sense at UCLA. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Sparks center / Craven's social media clout chaser Cameron Brink told TMZ that she would be okay with doing a Playboy shoot, provided, of course, her fiance is on board. As always with Cameron Brink, it's never about the basketball. Platform over winning. Brand building over basketball. And I want to keep things G-rated. I don't want to make dirty comments about her because I don't care. I'm already married to the prettiest girl I know. But if I were still single and I were so inclined to buy a Playboy as opposed to binge watching the limitless hours of free pornography online, I would not buy an issue with Cameron Brink in it. Why? 2 reasons. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Now that the NBA trade deadline is come and gone, talk to me about the Lakers and Clippers. And if you enjoy the update, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day. Thank you for watching. I'm James, and we'll be back tomorrow morning. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortel Queso production. Take care.